cucumbers. So it's kind of this little give and take. Like, you can get the bun, but you gotta have the tongue too. I think it's a nice snack. It's easy to kind of hold on your own.
People here are so adventurous about what they eat. They're really open to trying new things. If you're a young restaurateur and are just trying something out, you can make a go of it because people really want to support experimentation and innovation.
The Mapo Sloppy Joe, chili oil marinated beef tendon. This is kind of a Szechuan Chinese version of an American classic. Here at the bar, we don't have utensils, so we had to kind of be creative with the ways that we were going to get food to the customer.
I think it's a really exciting time in San Francisco, from the high end to the low end. I mean, there's just really great, honest food.
We just want to make it really, really well, whether that's bread or coffee or tortillas or bao.
Belgium is known for its beer and its chocolate. Now scientists say if you put the two together, it results in a superior tasting sweet treat. Leading chocolate producer Barry Callebaut found that its flavour forms when the sticky white pulp covering cocoa beans ferments during the drying process. Gino Franken leads the company's global research and development team.
The bean is always pushed through fermentation to develop the aroma potential, but it is never done so optimally or fully.
The chocolate connoisseurs turn to scientists from Leuven to help them find the yeast that results in the tastiest cocoa bean. Kevin Verstrepen's team developed a cross between a beer yeast and one that occurs in the cocoa bean's natural environment.
If you just take a good brewer's yeast and you put it on chocolate, you're not really going to get great chocolate because they're really not adapted to that environment. So it was really key to take the yeast that we isolate from the chocolate that are used to growing there, that can use all the sugars and all the nutrients that are available in these chocolate beans.
The result is a hybrid yeast that releases the most desirable aroma compounds more quickly and prevents the growth of unwanted fungi. This allows the producer to replicate the purest cocoa flavour with every bean. The Belgian team says using yeast to engineer the taste of the chocolate means no added chemicals or artificial flavours.
You will soon be able to go to the supermarket and pick your really favorite chocolate that's a bit more fruity, whereas maybe your significant other will go and he wants a more robust, smoky chocolate, or a caramel one, or a sweeter or less sweet.
With the beer-powered yeast behind their chocolate, Barry Callebaut is now confident their product will stand up to any taste test.
Some questions can't wait until morning. So I'm one of many nurses at Cigna with answers, anytime, day or night. I'm Lauren, and I've got your back.
You weren't always a darling little boy,
Oh,
though.
come on. It was
No,
weird,
you
yeah.
weren't. You kind of wanted it your way.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's my mom, Dorothy Sietsema. And that's me just a few years ago. The only food I was critiquing then was Mom's in our Southwest Minnesota kitchen. This is me now. Gotta stay anonymous for the job, so all eyes will be on Mom and her classic Midwestern fare. Trust me, it's better that way.
Isn't this fun, Tom?
This is just like old times.
Just like old times.
So, Mom, you want to put in a cup of buttermilk.
I haven't made this cake forever and ever.
For the first time, I'm critiquing my mom's buttermilk chocolate cake as a food critic.
We're just about ready, Mom. We got
Okay.
some-
I'm glad, because I'm ready.
Yep, we're coming over. now you're playing. Wow.
You will like this.
Wow. This is a very simple little cake, and the frosting you said is from Betty Crocker's.
Yes.
An old Betty Crocker
From 1951.
cookbook. 1951. Okay, I'm going to try this. Wow. It's sort of like what Twinkies aspire to be. The frosting is like ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a shareable. This is a recipe that more people should know about, and 2 thumbs up.
Good.
You might be thinking I was just being easy on Mom, but this cake really is perfect as is. Cheers, Mom.
Just what I needed. Just what I needed.
One of the best things about pig head is the many different textures that you get in it. You have like the crunchiness from the ears, you have this really soft white fat inside the jowl area, you have the cheek, you have a little bit of bite from the tongue. So once you put all those things together, it really makes this interesting textures that are in your mouth. This is our crispy head cheese salad. We do a standard breading procedure, which is flour, egg wash, and ground up breadcrumbs. Typically we deep fry it. This preparation, I cooked it in the pan with a little pork fat. The nature of the head cheese itself is because it's set in a gelatin, it really is kind of sensitive to temperature. If you were to cook it too long, it could, it would start to fall apart. That gelatin would heat up too much and you would lose that bond that it makes. You can't just throw it on a grill like you would with a pork chop. You definitely have to have a little bit of finesse when you're cooking it. Butchering the animal correctly, to cooking the head to the right consistency, to breading it correctly. We really strive to make sure that we're doing the best that we possibly can do in every step of that process.
Oktoberfest is known for hearty food, men in lederhosen, and of course, beer. And the beer must be served in the traditional 1-liter mass, its official mug. Decorated with colorful letters that spell the word Oktoberfest and white beer foam spilling over the upper letters, the mugs are already collector's items before they've even been used. The city of Munich started in 1978 to issue a special mug for Oktoberfest. Every year, a different artist designs the motif. This year's design is by artist Moritz Breitenhuber. An Oktoberfest mug is worth at least several €100, says an organizer, maybe even more.
I have the entire range as of 1978, and I'm very proud of it. As we have just been told, it's already worth €2,000. It certainly is a collector's item, and everybody should buy one.
But the most heatedly discussed issue is the price for what's in the mugs. 1 liter of beer will set you back more than €10 this year. Organizers expect more than 6.5 million visitors to hit Oktoberfest, which runs from September 19th through October 4th.
Spaghetti you can eat with a spoon. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs.
The greatest invention since the napkin. The Uh-oh kids cook up some fun. Here come the SpaghettiOs! Uh-oh. And everybody's up. Uh-oh. For those fun-to-eat SpaghettiOs.
You forgot.
One tasty little O. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
SpaghettiOs.
If you swallow Teddy O Bear shaped last.
Oh, SpaghettiOs. Spaghetti, take it away.
Whoa.
Campbell's SpaghettiOs. Oh, yeah.
Some questions can't wait until morning. So I'm one of many nurses at Cigna with answers, anytime, day or night. I'm Lauren, and I've got your back.
never thought there'd be a day where people would just be staring at me eating pork salad.
I know I got some hot turkey legs here. Thanks, man. It's hot. Hot. Oh, that's cold.
My 3-year-old wants to try it. He loves peanut butter and jelly.
There are your red romaine lettuce leaves on the veggie experiment. Kjell Lindgren completing the harvesting of these first samples that are earmarked for consumption by the crew.
All right, so who wants lettuce?
This is Mission Control Houston, the crew on board the station ready to consume the red romaine lettuce leaves, the product of the innovative and groundbreaking harvesting of the veggie experiment. They're going to put some oil and vinegar on these lettuce leaves to consume them for the first time.
You rolling? All right.
Woohoo!
Cheers, cheers,
cheers,
cheers.
That's awesome. Good.
Tastes good?
Yeah. I like that.
Hello and welcome to Post Sports Live, a farewell edition. I'm Gene Wong. This is our final broadcast. So joining me in studio to help take us out in style is, on the aisle seat, Dave Sheinin, Enterprise reporter and author of RGIII, The Promise. In the middle chair, Adam Kilgore, national sports reporter. And to my left, longtime Post Sports participant and columnist, DC Sports Blog, Dan Steinberg. Guys, welcome. We have a lot to cover today. Redskins, of course, leading the news. We could do some NFL with the preseason, a bunch of injuries we'll talk about, and then we'll look at the NFC East, and then the Washington Nationals, who are 5.5 games back of the New York Mets with not a lot of games to go. And then we'll look at the college football landscape with the most recent preseason AP poll out. But off the top, as usual, the Redskins, Robert Griffin III in the headlines again. There's been a lot made of whether Jay Gruden left him in too long in the last preseason game, whether it's offensive line's fault, whether Robert Griffin III held onto the ball too long. Dave, I'll start with you. With all that in mind, how many games are you giving this guy to start, either by injury or being pulled because of poor performance?
I mean, I don't see how you can go any higher than a quarter of the season, 4 games. I mean, it's going to go bad. It's all. I mean, it's
one way or the other.
One way or the other. Let me just say one thing for RG3. Okay, I'm not a neutral observer in this, I suppose, but I still like the kid. I still think he's a good kid. I still think his mistakes, and there are mistakes, have been born out of naivety or ultra competitiveness, whereas everybody else who's at fault in this, there's an element of malfeasance there. I mean, he's been used by the owner, he's been abused by the coaches, he's been torpedoed by teammates.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not blameless, but I mean, he's naive and ultra competitive.
Well, Adam, where do you stand on this? He's not going to make it the entire season, is he?
Thanks. Yeah, do that. Yeah.
Is he going to make it through the entire season? No chance. Right?
No, I would say the over/under at like 3.5 games and take the under probably. I mean, I think. Like, just look at last season. Like, I think people kind of came into this summer and saying, like, this is the year we need to find out about RG3. I think we kind of found out about him last year. And again, like, it's not necessarily all his fault, but he's just not set to succeed as an NFL quarterback in this city for this team. I mean, I think there's too much baggage there at this point, whether it's his fault or whether it's Gruden's fault or the owner's fault or the trainer's fault or whoever's fault. I think the door is pretty much. The window is closed on him being a productive Washington Redskins quarterback.
Dan, you've been following this whole saga since it started, written a lot about it. Where do you stand on this? Is he going to make it through not even half the season, right? Is that fair?
I'm trying to think of how many hours I've sat in these seats
talking
talking about
this.
this third of my life.
This is your last one, though, so enjoy while you can.
Better make it good. Honestly, everything for me changed in the last week, and that's probably doesn't reflect well on me because I said during the preseason, I think 12 games. I thought he was going to play 12 games just because I thought they were going to give him a shot and he would probably get hurt at some point, but that they would give him every chance. That last game, I mean, is it fair to draw that many conclusions off a quarter? I don't know, but it looked exactly like last year where he just looked completely inept and just completely unable to function like an NFL quarterback. And it felt completely inevitable that he was going to get hurt in that preseason game playing only 4 series. And if that's the case, I don't know how he survives playing against St. Louis and Miami and the Giants and the Eagles. I still think that they do not want to have to bench him for performance, but I don't see how he can survive.
It was incredibly telling what Mike Jones wrote about how other teammates were saying, like, he's not letting us do our job because he's doing the plays wrong. Now, like that, which is like, you never hear that kind of stuff come out from, even if it's true. That was telling as far as.
Dave, do you think it's a clean break for everyone, just for the sake of both sides? That's going to be best for the situation.
It has to end that way. Yeah. I mean, neither the Redskins nor Griffin are ever going to be a unit together that gets anywhere. Both of them have a future at some point, I think. I think Griffin still has a future in the NFL. The Redskins can turn this around. It happens in the NFL year to year, but it has to be apart from each other.
It's a perfect way for us to end the show because I literally remember sitting in this chair and talking about how this guy was going to be the most popular athlete in the history of Washington, D.C. sports.
And he was.
He was on that trajectory. He was on that trajectory, right. Well, he's a player who's been injured a lot in his career, but we've had a couple injuries in the preseason already. Jordy Nelson, obviously gone for the Packers. Kelvin Benjamin gone for the Carolina Panthers. Kevin White to a lesser degree for the Chicago Bears. These are ACL injuries. Dan, I'll come back to you on this. Is it time to completely rethink the preseason? Aaron Rodgers said preseason is meaningless.
I mean, I think at a minimum, most people could agree that you could do fewer preseason games, even if you don't eliminate the preseason. I mean, there's a suggestion going around about doing kind of like joint practices like the Redskins and the Texans did, as opposed to scrimmages. The thing is, if you do that, people will get injured too.
Maybe in a fight they'll get injured.
Even if it's not a fight, when guys put on football pads and play football against each other, even if it's in practice, sometimes they get injured. I mean, I guess it's less frustrating if it happens in a more competitive setting than a preseason game. And so I think the extent that you can limit those opportunities, or maybe just make them for not starters, make them kind of a showcase to try to figure out who's going to be number 40 through number 90 on your team. And obviously there would still be injuries there, but then you wouldn't be losing star players. I mean, it's horrible, but part of it is just this sport is a horribly violent sport that guys get injured all the time, every time they participate in any kind of football activity.
Or even if it's non-contact, even practice.
Right.
Adam, college football doesn't have preseason games. And to my recollection, they don't have catastrophic injuries like this that I can think of.
Injuries. Maryland's
games. I said games when I said preseason games. But do they have it right, or does the NFL need to rethink completely how they do the preseason?
I think it doesn't matter what you do. You're gonna end up guys get like Steinberg, like the logical endpoint to saying guys get hurt in the preseason, so don't do it is stop playing football at all. Because if you play football, you get injured. So I mean, so like Dante Fowler, right, the Jaguars' first pick. Yeah. Didn't he tear his ACL in the first practice in May? So I mean, it's almost like not even worth talking about in a way because it's such a good business for the NFL. Like they're making as much of a profit.
It's not going away.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not going. It's a cash cow for the NFL, and the union isn't strong enough to fight it and get rid of the in baseball, like that union is powerful and could actually fight this thing and get make a deal, and MLB would cower to them. In the NFL, it's not going to happen. I mean, the union isn't strong enough.
What would happen if a head coach just said, "I'm just not playing a single one of my starters"?
I'm sitting all my stars.
That happens like once a preseason,
right?
Basically.
The last preseason game they don't play
them for an entire preseason. They just said, "I'm not playing any starters."
Is there? Dave, is there any reason for Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Rodgers to take a single snap in any preseason game? There's no reason, is there?
I mean, I think there is. I mean, I think there's something to be gained from game speed preseason reps. Yes.
I mean, I kind of
different.
think, like with the Jay Gruden thing, to go locally, when people were saying he obviously should have taken Robert Griffin off because he couldn't be protected.
Yeah.
I mean, part of this is they need to see how long of a leash this guy should get, and they don't want to be doing that in regular season games if they can help it. Like they need more data points, and so it makes sense for him to be playing. But obviously, he could have gotten hurt more seriously than he did, and then what? I don't know.
Adam, to you, is it preseason more about getting players up to speed, or is it as much about getting the rookies and the guys you don't know who are going to make the roster, see if they should get a spot?
Well, I was going to say, there's probably some guys who
It's
are
about
like,
money.
wait a second.
That
That's
number
sure.
one.
Yeah,
Number one.
It's about owners
Fair
making
enough,
money.
fair enough.
But there are like the guys on the bottom of the roster are probably saying play more preseason games because like if you're trying to make a team and you're out there on a field, you're playing for all 30 teams, basically saying this is what I can do. So they probably want more chances to show what they can do.
Yeah.
That being said, I mean, yeah, it's not going to change. There's too much money. They're making too much money, and the players aren't going to have the power to change it.
And it's bad for fans too. I mean, it is bad for fans in the sense that season ticket holders are being forced to pay full rates.
It's part
for
of it. You have to
preseason
buy
games.
the
Which is another example of like the NFL being able to just like
They have the
make
overs.
anyone bend to their whims and like just sucking money out of people who shouldn't be paying money, and everyone's powerless to like get off this like drug that is the NFL.
I did my first preseason DraftKings last night.
Well, we'll get to that a little bit later, Dan. But let's get back to the NFC East here and the competition on the field. Dan, I'll start with you. Who do you got winning the division?
The NFC East?
Yes.
I think I'm a sucker for Chip Kelly. I was a sucker for Chip Kelly last year. I thought they were going to win the division last year. Obviously, they didn't.
With
but
4 quarterbacks, one of whom might be Tim Tebow.
I watched a lot of that Eagles game. Man, he makes you want to watch the television for sure, Chip Kelly does. I mean, he's been such a controversial offseason for him. So many, distractions.
Controversial couple off seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Players coming and going. Players.
Their best players.
Accusing him of racial bias and who's coming and going. I just still think that he's the best coach in the division. I think that that's going to pay off in the end. I think that he is a little bit ahead of other people in what he's thinking for football. And so I just trust that he's going to figure it out. I know that they haven't been very good against good teams, but they've consistently beaten the bad tees, and I think that they're going to win the division.
You buy in that he thinks Tim Tebow actually can play in the NFL and be a serviceable quarterback?
I do. And I was like arguing with this at a bar with a random person the other day.
Yeah.
So I don't know, he didn't look very good on Saturday night.
No.
I don't think
the guy in the bar or Tebow?
I don't think the division's going to be won or lost on the basis of Tebow, but I do think it will be on the basis of Chip Kelly.
Well, Adam, who do you got winning the NFCs?
I was pretty early sitting in this chair last year. I was early on Dallas last year, and I'm going to stick with Dallas.
Okay.
No, I'm going to stick with Dallas.
Because?
I think they do just like last year. They do one thing better than anybody else in the division, which is run the football, even without DeMarco Murray. I think Murray was probably like the least important piece of that running game. It's the offensive line, and it's the way that Bryant can attract defenders. And I think Joseph Randle, he was a great running back at Oklahoma State. I think he'll be fine in there.
If Fadden can stay healthy, he's a breakaway back too. That's
I think McFadden's shot,
huge if.
But put anybody in there.
Yeah.
Like they have such a good offensive line. If they can stay somewhat healthy, Romo is like an excellent quarterback. I mean, he's very efficient
with
now.
a good line when he's not forced to make throws.
Yeah, and Brian is like the offensive pieces they have are go up with anybody in the NFL, let alone this division, which is kind of so-so. So if their defense can be even mediocre, I think they're far and away the best team in the division.
Yeah, but the Redskins stole away Bill Callahan.
Dave, are you going to shock us all, pick the Skins to win the
Oh,
NFCs?
come on, man! I'm not that dumb. No, I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about here, but I'm not that dumb. I mean, I'm pretty bad, but no, I would say I'm a Chip Kelly guy as well. I think that Dan's thing makes a lot of sense, and I don't think Tebow matters in that much. I mean, he plays minimally if he makes that roster, right? I mean, when is he gonna? He's gonna be in for a certain packages or something just to give a new look, but it's not gonna hinge on Tim Tebow.
I'm surprised no one's picked the guy that's won 2 Super Bowls, Eli Manning. You're talking about the Eagles who have Sam Bradford, Sanchez, Matt Barkley. I mean, that's their quarterbacks over a guy who's won multiple rings. Are you giving the Giants any shot here with Victor Cruz coming back?
They've had a bunch of injuries already on the defensive side, too. I guess I feel like this is probably the downslope of Eli Manning's career, and his numbers have not been great the last couple of years.
No,
so.
he's prone to turn it over.
Prone is one, yeah.
But just get him to the playoffs. The guy makes every play, it seems like, right?
Who are you taking in the division?
I've got the Giants. I got the Giants this year.
Really?
I do.
Wow.
I got the Giants. I think they're coming back this year.
I can't even name like anybody on their defense other than the guy with 3 fingers.
Jason Pierre-Paul. Yeah, well, he still might be their best player, even with 3 fingers. Let's move on to some baseball now. The Washington Nationals have kind of started to right the ship here. They're still 5.5 games back of the New York Mets with, as we said, not a lot of games to go. Adam, I'll start with you. Have they shown enough to convince you they can turn this thing around and get the division?
Well, the problem with how they've played all year is that it's not even about them as much as it's about the Mets, who
just
are,
David Wright
are just
comes
a
back
wagon,
after 8 months
right?
and it's a home run, right? I mean, that's how it goes.
Yeah,
for them.
I mean, they're just killing everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, they're facing terrible pitchers, but they're pounding them. And their schedule the rest of the way is so easy that, I mean, basically the season comes down to, can they go 5-1 or 6-0 or maybe 4-2 against the Mets? Like that, those two series is pretty much their whole season, and they have to play pretty well otherwise too, obviously. But it'll be interesting to see how they work Span back in. You know, if they try to keep Michael Taylor getting some at bats, if they give Worth days off. I think Worth is coming around with the bat, which is really important. I think they're the best team. They'll be the best version they can be of themselves if Worth is going well. So I think it's smart that they've kept him in. But I also wonder, they lose a lot when you take Michael Taylor off the field and keep Worth on it defensively. So it'll be interesting to see how they mix and match that.
Dave, Denard Span possibly is set to come back after missing 7 weeks. With all the pieces in place and how they've played recently, do you feel they can get this division or no?
I'll put it this way. I mean, they only have one team to worry about ahead of them. It's not like they're in the middle of this wild card scrum with 6 teams they have to leapfrog. They're out of the wild card. Yeah. All that's left is the division. There's one team. So, you know, if the Mets not collapse, if they just stumble at all, and granted their schedule is set up so that they're not going to stumble, but if they even go 500 the remaining games, and the Nats, you know, go 28-12 over these last 40, which, you know, wouldn't be a shocking thing at the beginning of the year for them to go 28-12 over a 40-game stretch. Sure. We thought they were set up to be that good at their best.
I mean, they've done that once already anyway.
I wouldn't put my money on it at even odds, but like if you gave me 10-1, I'd take a shot at the Nats. I mean, there's only one team they have to worry about, and they have 6 games with them.
It's probably like 6-1 or
something like that. Right? I would take that.
The Fangraphs is like 15% this morning, so that's like what's the math? 6 or 7-1? Yeah.
Are you saying they can catch him, Dan, or is that out
I
of the
agree
question?
with everything that Dave said. I think based on who they play, it's very likely that they're gonna finish well above 500. I think that they've put themselves in a situation where that might not be good enough. And I guess it feels a little bit like 2013. They obviously weren't quite as far behind, but they got super, super hot at the end of 2013, and it just wasn't enough. They need help. They need some help from the Mets, and unless they go 5-1 or 6-0 against them in those games, it feels like, you know, they've got a couple outs, but not very many.
Yeah. Just Dave, I would ask you to touch on what someone Adam said about Michael Taylor and Span and Worth in that outfield. What do you do with Span if Span does come back? And with the way Worth has been swinging the bat lately.
I mean, it's really it's a hard spot for Matt Williams, right? I mean, you've got the guy on the biggest contract position player-wise who scuffling, hasn't hit all year. Clearly, if it were purely performance-based, he'd be the guy that sits. But I don't know that you can bench Jason Worth right now. I mean, how many more years do you have of him, right? 3?
Yeah. Even beyond that,
2?
I still do think that their highest ceiling was with Worth playing like he is capable, even at his age. But are you going to get that?
Yeah, are you going to get that? You haven't so far.
Well, I wish we'd have another chance to talk about this, but we won't. So we'll have to watch it unfold off camera. But let's move on to college football here. The AP poll just came out, preseason AP poll. Ohio State, the first time ever in nearly 100 years in the preseason AP poll, they're unanimous #1 team. Dan, is this team going to run the table? Can anyone beat these guys?
My assumption is that they're not going to, just sort of for the same reason that I wasn't totally shocked that they won last year. And it just seems like it's too hard to predict these sports that involve college kids and, you know, 3 quarterbacks who are all young and all the politics of that. They've got Michigan State, who's, you know,
Very
one of the
good.
5 or 6 best teams in the country,
Yep.
also in their conference. You know, Wisconsin, always a top 25 team.
Although they beat Wisconsin 59-0 last year.
Well, fair enough. Wait, so if you add that to what Wisconsin did to Maryland, what does that add up to? I just feel like there are enough uncertainties that counting on something like that to happen is just too big a leap of faith for me. So I think no, they're not going to go undefeated.
Well, Adam, this is a team that has 3 quarterbacks that could start for pretty much any program in the country. Is anyone going to beat these guys?
I mean, I would say they're definitely the best team in the country, and they'll be a favorite pretty heavy favorite every team they play. But I go, if you give me even odds, I would say they're going to lose one of those games just based on, even an 80% shot, 15 times in a row, you're going to lose, one. So yeah, I think they do. I think if I had to bet one team to win the title, it would obviously be Ohio State.
Yep.
I would say that the chances are pretty good they stumble once. Even Virginia
Blacksburg.
Tech is a
That's what I was going to say,
game,
man. I wouldn't be shocked if they lost that game.
I mean, I would be
it's
shocked
a tough place to win.
Yeah.
You wouldn't
I'd
be
be
shocked after
surprised.
they lose to Virginia Tech last year. You don't think they have that game
surprised.
circled, that
I
they
know.
want to hammer them?
I mean,
I would be
Blacksburg's
surprised,
still a
but
pretty
not
hard
shocked.
place
That's
to
a
play.
hard place to win. Yes.
So
Look,
you're saying they don't go undefeated?
And
I think they don't because
having three quarterbacks is like you only get to play one at once. So it's not.
No, sure.
Yeah.
But unlike any other team that's in the top 5, they can withstand the loss of their starting quarterback and still be a team that can be the number 1 in the country.
True.
That's a huge deal, is
True.
it not?
Yeah, I saw this stat in an AP story about the preseason poll that the last 6 teams that have had 90% of the number 1 votes or more didn't win the national title. Ohio State obviously was the unanimous pick. Stuff just happens in college football, man. I mean, you can't predict it. I mean, they could go out and lose to an Illinois or a Minnesota. I mean, it happens.
Maryland.
It happens all in Maryland. It happens every year.
It does. I mean,
Nobody runs the table from number 1.
And looking back, it feels like Ohio State was like this historically great team last year.
Except Alabama.
And they shouldn't.
Yeah, I was going to say, except Alabama, which has lost 5 times in the last 5 years.
So Ohio State now, looking back last year, seemed like a historically great powerhouse. And most people were saying, rightfully so, I would say, they shouldn't even make the playoff. So, this perceptions change so quickly in college football. We could be looking back and saying, like, how do we not see TCU coming? How do we not see...
well, TCU has the Heisman Trophy favorite, possibly at quarterback,
do you
right?
think Maryland's going to win the national championship?
How do we not see Maryland coming is what we're going to ask. Brutal schedule for the Terps.
Okay, let's just get off the turf. We're talking about teams that have a chance to win the national championship. I'm saying Ohio State goes undefeated. That's my
We're all
last word.
0-0 right now, Gino.
Yeah, we're all 0-0 right now. But, guys, Dan, have you been nostalgic? Were you in the first show and the last show of Post Sports Live?
No, I have been. We had a lot of good times here. I talked to LeVar Arrington repeatedly about how many squirrels it would take to subdue him. So many good moments.
What the best breakfast options are? Did you talk about? Wasn't that one of the top? Thanksgiving food. That was it. That was what
side dish. A lot of good times in the studio.
Okay.
LeVar, even though he hasn't worked here for like 2 years, still holds the record for most words spoken on this show.
Well, fellas, I guess the only thing left to say is that's all she wrote, right? Thanks for making the Swan Song memorable. And want to say special thanks to our producer, Jane, and Randy and Kyle, the people behind the camera who really make the magic happen. And there's champagne in the room, so make sure to get some on the way out, okay, guys?
Awesome.
Is Fourth going to pop in here?
You should. Oh, yeah, and also thanks to John, predecessor, who helped get the show off the ground 5 years ago. Wow, I can't believe it's been 5 years.
The longest running web show in Washington Post history.
We'll take that, right?
Like Woodward and Bernstein, they never did this.
We're the Saturday Night Live of Post, of the Washington Post.
Okay, guys, the champagne's getting warm, so we need to pop it. For Dave Scheinen, Adam Kilgore, Dan Steinberg, I'm Gene Wong. Thanks for watching, and we're done.